Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Power Hour show, the show where we are talking running, we talk runners. I've had many guests on this show, and I've had lots of junior athletes come onto the show that would remember where their journey started and where in most cases, it has started in the school, during the PE lessons, or it's when their PE instructor or teacher is the one that played an important role in, pointing them in the right direction, or to start off with encouraging them, that they've got something in themselves that they probably need to invest a little bit more time in. And when they do that within school athletics, within the PE classes, then the teachers, the PE teachers and other teachers would seem to, they're the ones, the first point where they get the first direction to move them into club athletics. Now, one thing that keeps coming up all the time in all these discussions is just the difference, between schools, what the athletes would have experienced at school and what they start experiencing, within the club setup. Clearly the two, albeit one depends on the other, they soon realize the two are different. If they had to take their talents to that next level, they have to realize their potential. There are certain things that they encounter in a club environment, which possibly they do not encounter as much in a school environment. Well, to help me discuss this tonight, my guest is Isabel Horsburgh. And Isabel is a young athlete that, has come our way, and she'll be able to share with us some of her recent, experiences and lessons regarding that, because she's within that transition phase where she's just come from a school environment into a club set up. Isabel, welcome to
Hello. Thank you. Hi. I'm good, thank you.
What have you been up to this past week today? What have you been up to?
Today I've been tuning into the Notting Hill Carnival online, but yesterday I had a training session, obviously with you. And now I'm just excited to be on this show.
Okay, good show. Now, maybe before we get on to your athletics career, as it were, you involved in ballet. Your background there is ballet as well. You still are involved with that, are you? No.
Yes, so I do ballet a couple of times a week, and I'm helping teach it as well now. But I've been doing ballet longer than I've been doing athletics for. So I started I think I was 4, and I've been doing that up until present. I'm still doing it. So yeah, it's very different to athletics.
Yeah, but then the fact that you started, well, I suppose it's the way of ballet, to start early and go on with this. You do have these, I suppose, what are they called in ballet? Grades or levels or
grades? Yeah, grades.
And what level are you at? I mean, for you
so
to be
grade 6
and be a teacher as well.
Yeah, so I'm grade 6, and I was meant to be doing my intermediate exam this summer, so that's the minimum qualification to be a teacher in ballet. So, but unfortunately because of COVID, I couldn't take the exam. So hopefully I can take that whenever exams are allowed to come back on. But grade 6 / intermediate, kind of both at the same time.
Now, I know there'll possibly be a few crossovers between ballet and your experiences in athletics, but for viewers out there, that think, wow, when I watch ballet, there's a lot of postural discipline there, to be able to do those kind of moves that you people, you ballerinas do. Could you tell us a bit about that? How do you arrive at such a physical expression discipline? It must, obviously you started a long time ago. What is the training regime like? How often do you train, and how long are the training sessions?
Yeah, so with ballet, I think the lessons are like an hour, but now that I've been doing it for a while, we have lessons that can be like an hour and a half long, and they're kind of for something like, so for like ballet and soft shoes, they're called, so just normal shoes, it's just a lot of like strengthening, which leads on to point shoes. So that's when you get the ankle strength, and like you've got to, it's very much to do with your core strength as well, being able to hold yourself up to do all the different ballet moves. So that in that sense you get a bit of crossover, so because it builds up strength. So I feel like doing both athletics and ballet has made me stronger, like the combination definitely. So yeah, I think it's also, it's sort of a social element in ballet as well. It's nice to do it with other people, but like it's very much about your own strength, like being able to hold yourself up doing ballet. So yeah.
Okay, so where did the interest in athletics come from? Then you were so into ballet. You are still into ballet. How did it click to? Oops, I think I could have a go at this.
I think so. When I started off ballet, it was more of just like a hobby. So I wasn't really like, it wasn't something I was taking like seriously. I just kind of did it as a hobby. And so I think it was year 5, like primary school. And there was just district sports, and it would be a thing of like at lunchtime, we'd play like games, just like running games, like if it's chasing or like it or sharks and fishes or something where you run across. I used to run, and people kind of worked out that was quite quick. So like there was one game, it was like Chicken Hero Twin, and you could either run as a class, you could run with your twin, or you could run by yourself. So I'd like run by myself, trying to avoid the like capture in the middle. So I knew I could like run, but then it was only when we got to district sports, like the kind of trials to get it, they weren't that serious, but it was like they kind of just had to work out who was the quickest, who could be put forward for the races. So I guess just doing those races, like it kind of came out that I was winning them. So it was like I was put forward then for district sports, and I did 100 meters for district sports, and then also long jump, because I suppose you need the speed for the run up, and then with ballet I can kind of jump as well. So yeah, I'd say that's how I first kind of got into athletics and realized that it was something I could maybe do, because it was like I was naturally able to run fast, but that was just, again, I wasn't taking it too seriously. I literally only did it through school. So yeah.
Yeah, like that. You know, I've got the speed, so I'll just go for the long jump and just use my speed, and then use my ballet to jump and fly.
Yeah.
That's great. So you represented, there you are, that's your first responsibility, to represent your school for the first time.
Yeah.
You go to the district and you come out of there. What was the experience with athletics at that level, you know, for the first time you're doing this, and meet other talented scholars at that meeting? And what did it do? How did that help you make the decision to continue progressing that way?
Yeah, so I think doing it at district sports level, that was my first experience of any form of like competition in the athletics world. Like, so it would literally just be like schools in the district. And I think, oh, are we, is it okay? And then, okay, so I think one thing I noticed is how nervous I got before every single race. It was just the nerves that were kind of, because it was like in school, it was almost like, it was more relaxed, just running like with your peers, but it was people I didn't know. I was like, how fast is my competitor? I was just like, and I just remember getting so nervous at the point when you had to, we were all called in advance to sit behind the start line, and that was the scariest part for me. But the actual running was quite fun. It was just like, you just had everyone cheering on the sides, and then you had your school vest that you were wearing representing. I can't remember like the outcome of my like infant school, primary school running. Like, I don't think I did. I think I was just in the middle at that point. Like, I was quick, but I knew I wasn't the fastest. Like, it was kind of, and there were people that I started recognizing as like, as I went to district sports, like again the next year, like there were certain people I was picking up on, like, oh, I know you're fast, or I know you're a really good jumper. And it was kind of, I think my success was in long jump at that point, because when I did it in year 5, that's when, like, it was the year 5s and 6s who did it. And then I think, so I won up the year 5s and then came 3rd overall. So I was like, okay, but long jump didn't end up being one that I carried on with like long term. It was more the running. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and having experienced the two school championships, if we may call them that, back to back, when and how did you decide, maybe I should start training, away from the school as well? How did that happen?
Yeah, I think that was when I got to secondary school, because with when I was in primary school, it was more just something that we did like only in the summer and then it was done. But I think once I got to secondary school, they took sports a bit more seriously. Like it wasn't just the token like fun summer event. It was like actually in the curriculum, like as part of the extracurricular activities. So I think I started in year 7, like going to the training sessions. They only ran in summer, but like that was the first time I'd actually like trained for athletics. And I think we probably had like time trials and things to get into the school competitions. And this was a whole like other ballpark. Like it was more regular, the competitions. It wasn't just district sports. It wasn't just your one-off thing. There were the all-day competitions and all sorts. But I think year 7 was mostly about finding your event. So there were lots of other long jumpers. So I didn't end up like pursuing long jump. But I think I did do the trial for 100 meters, and that's what I got in to do for the school. And I think it was then that I started actually competing properly. I think that was when I won my first race in it was year 8 that I won my first like school race like properly. And that's when I started, like I'd even have dreams about thinking the Olympic, like I just was suddenly like jumping and thinking like I was paying more attention to the Olympic. It was the Olympics that year. So I was thinking, wow, I can imagine myself like however many years time in that position, and it suddenly became more real than just like a token thing I did in school. So
yeah, okay, that's good. So there you are. Then what was the role of your school PE and the PE, the curriculum itself that you referred to, but also the role of the PE teachers, in you continuing to feel the love and the passion for athletics? What comment would you put on that
one? So in terms of the PE teachers, I think we had the actual like club, the athletics club that they ran, and that they'd be just down, but that's when they wouldn't be, they'd more be supervising, like they'd leave us to kind of do our own thing. But it was in PE where you kind of, if you hadn't been noticed yet, that was your sort of chance to show off your ability. So the teacher might be aware that I could run, and they're like, we've seen her around at the athletics training, but it would be PE where you actually get like time, like you actually get a time for your run or something. So I think my form tutor happened to be a PE teacher, so she became quite invested in like just my running. And I remember one thing she used to say is I had shopping bag arms, like when I run that I go like that. And that was one thing that she was trying to work on me. She's like, maybe if we put a band on you, then you'll just start running like this. But so she was quite a big, like she was sort of someone who was aware of my running ability and was kind of in the background, like just as in if I was at athletics competition, she'd be there, and I'd speak to her if the race was good. If the race was bad, I'd go back and speak to her and see what she had to say about it. And I'd say the PE staff in general were quite, like they were very supportive when it was the athletic season. Like athletics kind of got forgotten about in the winter, but when it was summer, it was like that was the main focus. So that's when they were more involved.
Okay. All right. So there you are, you've got the taste of the track, through schools competitions. You've got the support from your PE teachers and the staff there, and you realize, well, for school, track and field is only, it's not everything. It's just part of the year. That's when you do it. And when did you start shifting into realizing you probably needed more, and how did that happen?
I think it would be, so especially competing at school, you weren't guaranteed to get your event. So at the time that was 100 meters for me. So I remember there was one random all-day competition where loads of people were just given events that weren't really necessarily suited to them. So I was being a sprinter and a long jumper, I was put into the 800 meters and the high jump, which was just completely out my like comfort zone. I didn't have like the capability to jump over. I remember I had one session like in our sports hall at school trying to jump backwards over like a foam bar, and I just did not enjoy going to the all-day competition and having to compete against people who were used to high jump. That was their event. I was like, what am I doing? And I was put into the 800 meters, which is just like, I don't run any further really than like sprints. So that was kind of a shift where I realized through school I wasn't like making my mark. I know that there were a couple of other girls who also ran the 100 meters, and it would like they'd rotate between the like three of us, and I wanted to be I wanted to be the one who was put forward for my event like weekly. Like I'd know that that's the event I was going to do. So I think that's when having a sort of proper training would set me up for like having my own event that is like the only one I put forward to, and that the school would know that as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, Isabel, when we come back, I'd like us to hear how you followed up on that decision and what happened and how you eventually decided to start doing, formal training in addition, to your school training. When we come back, that's what we will focus. If you've just joined us, we are having a discussion here on the journey of the athletes and, from the school to clubs, and here focusing primarily on the early part of, that transition from schools to club athletics, what these young people have to go through to navigate that area. It's pretty treacherous in terms of the differences that are there. For a start, in the school environment, athletics is done only part of the year, whereas in the club environment, that the duration is longer. And so that change there can also be something that they find, oops, this is quite some change. Right, Isabel, that's my guest right tonight. And Isabel, when did you then decide, right, I need some full-time attention. I need to give my athletics some full-time attention, more than just what I get at school, because, well, school is just a summertime. I need more than that.
Yes, so I had just watched the Usain Bolt documentary. It was on TV at the time, and I was feeling inspired. It was like the summer holidays a few years ago, and I went down to like the local track with my dad and my brother, and I was just running. I was trying to get my brother to time me, and then you happened to be my coach, my now coach, happened to be at the end of the track, and he'd spoken to my dad, and then because I hadn't even considered athletics to be something that I could like go all the way with. Like I had my hobby, which was ballet, and then I was thinking, I hadn't even thought about it. I just did it at school. And then when the option came about, like the offer came about to actually train properly, that's when I was kind of thinking, well, could I go somewhere with this? And it was a case of there are lots of people who have like, anyone can run. It's like they have the natural ability to just go. But if you fine tune that and actually get some proper training, like you can go somewhere with it. So I think that was an exciting prospect, like to find out that this like GB coach was like, suggested that I could be coached. I was like, okay. So that's when it became more of a reality that I could be a training athlete.
Yeah. I remember that mid-morning actually very clearly, seeing you and your dad across the track. You were blasting away, just burning the tartan track, and the dad don't know what was doing, trying to run to the finish line to try and time you. When you have gone past, I remember watching that and thinking, well, there's somebody with potential, but also with some sort of passion for it. And then, so what happened? There you go. Your dad tells you, oops, the coach there did have some kind words regarding you, and they've made you an offer for you to be able to, to start getting formal training. What went on in your mind? How did you take it? And how did you arrive at what decision that you arrived at?
I think it was mainly excitement and just the fact that previously I'd like dreamt of being able to like be in the Olympics. Like it really was just a dream, like it was a really far away dream. And so I think I don't even know if I thought about it that much. I think I was just excited. I was like, why would I say like this is an opportunity? Why would I not take it? And so I'm really glad I did. But I don't know if I was like, I found out what actual training was going to be because I don't think I was ready for the level of intensity. Like going from school into proper, like almost like elite training was quite the step. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to share some of your early experiences and what things that you found? Wow, this is different from a school situation. We don't do it this way in school. Oh, well, this. And what did you find a struggle with, from that sort of training?
Yeah, I think because I was new to it, it was a lot to do with like, well, firstly, weather conditions. Like at school, if it was just a bit of rain, it'd be like training's called off. Like the amount of times, because England, the amount of times that we'd have training called off, and that would be it. And then even if we have a competition at the end of the week, we just have to turn up the competition without any training. And so definitely working out just how to dress for training. It would be like I remember you'd say like if it was really cold that during recovery you'd have to like put on a coat or something, because I think I had whatever was keeping me warm to actually train in, but you need to keep your muscles warm. And I think that links a lot to how you talk a lot about the science of running, because in school I think they focus on times. They'll look at your time and be like, well, you're quick, you can go into the race, but there's no like technical knowledge behind it. It's just run the race. Whereas when I came to actual training, I think it's when I started to actually learn about what I was doing. And so yeah, other than the weather was a bit strong. Sometimes the motivation as well, because it was new. It was like I had to know that I had training. Like I had to make sure, like I was a bit bad with my like sleep, like just getting enough sleep before training. But that was something that my parents were kind of like they were saying, you need to get enough sleep before training. And I think we've spoken to you about it before, saying so that's like the kind of small lifestyle changes I've had to make, like to accommodate training.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here you are. Come rain, come sunshine, come snow, training still goes on. What have I got myself into? You must have been thinking then. All right. And well, now you don't dress this way for training. You have to think about what you are dressing for training. Your dressing should complement the efforts and the purposes and the goals of training. So that has got to be seen and reflected in your training gear. All right. Oops. Now I've got to get something else in my wardrobe, right? And trainers, what type of trainers that I should wear? It's not every other trainer that that just rock up at training and this is good enough, but it's not. A lot of changes around your own lifestyle, that you experience. Would you like to share some more on that?
Yes, I will. But I was also going to say, when you mentioned about trainers, one thing that training properly, I had to invest in a pair of spikes, and I'd only ever used like the school spikes for the races we had. And I had no idea what actual spikes were supposed to feel like, because the ones we ran in at school were so blunt. They were like football boots. And so wearing actual spikes on a proper track training was really exciting. That was when I felt like I was flying running, as opposed to just like trundling down in trainers or in blunt. I think one time I was walking towards my race and my spike hit onto something and the whole spike plate fell off right before I had to run. So that was the standard that I was used to of spikes. So it was a whole new experience wearing proper spikes and running and training properly. But anyway, so in terms of other lifestyle changes, I mean, so far it's been little things like, say if we do a session and like lactic acid is something that builds up from running when we do certain endurance sessions. And you told me before that fizzy drinks are just a no-no. Like before intense training, you don't want to have that carbon dioxide like in your body anyway. So it'd just be little things like if because it will be a Friday night before my Saturday training, I'll be like, oh, do you want a fizzy drink? I'm like, nope, I've got training, like I've got to. That's when I start like thinking like more like an athlete, like more you've got to look at your diet, you've got to look at what you're drinking. And like even like recently having lockdown training, I was saying that if I was making plans with people like in the week, I'd make sure that it wouldn't be the night before training, because that's again when I have to get more like get enough sleep, so I'm like ready for the session, because I'm now aware of how much more intense it can be doing proper training. But like I'm like, it's another thing of I psych myself up for it each time, and then I turn up, and even if it's really hard or even if it's an okay session, afterwards it's the feeling of like the endorphins, like you've done it. And it's like, because I'm always like, oh, like might feel like not dead but like completely by the end of the session, but then you actually like then feel the benefits later on, they'll kick in. And like yeah, it's one of the good, like it's a good thing about training. So yeah.
Maybe another experience you might want to share with us there is you coming from a school environment where it's the whole class, so you know there's that social component where you are with your peers during training or during the competition, and you get with this, your current setup is a one-to-one coaching, you know, it's just you and the coach. How did you transition that in your mind, and you to be able to actually, you know, find that part? This is the way I will work, but the change from being in a group and working on your, you know, one-to-one on your own.
Okay, so I think going to one-to-one training was definitely like in a class environment. For one, you like compare yourself to everyone else you're around, and the teachers are looking at you as a whole. They're not like necessarily focusing on an individual student. They're just like, it's all of us. It will be general feedback. It will be like, make sure you will drive for longer or whatever, like as in keep your head down for longer when you're running. But when I switched to one-to-one training, that's when there were little things that I didn't even know like that I needed to adjust for running. Like even something like my shopping bag arms that I had before, how from training now for a couple of years, like I've now seen the dip, like suddenly my arms are like this now, and that's something that I couldn't achieve in school. Even though I was told it and I knew it, I just couldn't, something about it. Every time I went into race mode, I was like this. So I think going into proper training, that's when you get to focus on the smaller individual details. So like for me, that was one of the big things, like just driving back. And it's just, I do different drills and exercises. So if coach had, like if you had your hands held behind me and I had to make sure that my elbows were hitting your hands, and it's just, even just that feeling, that little thing kind of was slowly being ingrained in my mind to the point that now I know, like I know if my arms are wrong, like it's, so I think definitely having the individual training, and everyone's different as well. So I think when the session's more kind of tailored to you, you find out things that are like beneficial to yourself, not only in training, but you can apply it to, I say even to like exams sometimes when I'm going into like written exams. I feel like there's like the mentality that I've been taught I can apply to not only training and running, but like other things in my life as well.
That's an interesting thought. I will come back to it later, you know, the mental training that goes along with your physical training, you know, with that. But let's focus on the technical side of your development, you know, how much time you've spent trying to bring out the optimal technique for Isabel, for who Isabel is, for what Isabel has got in terms of her neuromusculature, how that has progressed and how that has been climbed over the years, that you've just been working on it bit by bit, but building it up, you know, as a thing. You mentioned your arms there. What other elements, what other drills have you done to help you get to be the refined athlete that you are beginning to look like now?
So another thing is like it's something as like as small as like foot position that it wouldn't have been addressed before, like having your actual sprint position where your knees need to be, that your knees need to be over your toes. And like I think that was also a change in discipline from ballet, always having your toes pointed down, to making sure that my like feet were parallel to the floor, so that my like toes were upturned and not like, it's just little things like that. My shoulders loosening, because in ballet it's again very rigid, so it's like getting that fluidity in my shoulders for running. And all the little drills, is quite interesting to like look back to how I started, like how even just because there would be a thing of keeping a rhythm, like if I'm doing things with my feet and they have to be hitting the ground at a certain rhythm, the longer I was doing it, the more tired my body was getting. I would just like be slowing down doing them. But now that I'm doing the drills, I see what I'm working on. I think before I was more like, oh, I'm just tired, and just thinking about the fact that I'm tired. But now I know the drills, so when I'm doing it, I feel like I can keep up the pace more. And like, so yeah, I've had things to work on, like foot speed, like different parts of my leg as well. Like you've got like the A runs, which is kind of like the step up from like high knees that you just do in PE, or like wall sprints, which was another one, which was about like foot speed. So there's a lot of technical things that I've learned through like proper training, as opposed to the training we did at school.
Yeah. It's interesting that you point out some of the struggles you had there, you know, as a result of your earlier training in ballet, you know, and you know, in ballet, your shoulder, the stiffness of your shoulder is an important part of your presentation, as well as, you know, your ankle extension, so your toes are pointed. So when you're going on your toes and doing all that, you know, that movement there, and yet you come to track and field, and for your event, those two are really, you know, negative. They have a negative effect on what you are trying to accomplish. It was a struggle for you, was it not? And how did you reconcile that? And how do you still do it? Because you're still involved in ballet, where you still need your stiff shoulders, you still need your thing. But how have you been able to incorporate the two?
I think all the kind of, so say with my toes, like pointing them, it's even when I'm running the distance, it's like the fact that I was told that that's like putting brakes on. Like if you're putting the wrong part of your foot down, it's like almost slowing yourself down. Like obviously it seems counterproductive. So I think having the little lessons that I learned kind of showed me why what I was doing before could be wrong, or like hinder my performance. And I think now that I've been doing training for a couple of years, because obviously ballet was ingrained in my mind, I've been doing it for however many years. So what kind of enabled me to switch was just, I don't know, like compartmentalizing, like just knowing that I'm not in ballet, like I'm in training. That's like, I'll make sure when I'm warming up before a session, I used to just do my kind of PE stretches. You just do a lunge and you're like ready, and a couple of arm stretches. But one thing, I'll focus on making sure I've loosened up my shoulders before I start, even my ankles, just like, and that will be something that I'm thinking about when I'm doing my A runs and things, like that my foot position must be upturned and I'm not in ballet. I don't point my toes down. And like with ballet, it's almost like second nature now. I can just like snap back into it. But with training, it's a separate thing. I'm not like, I have to take myself out of ballet mode and into training. And it's stuck now. It's just, I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I must commend you. I've seen the transformation over the years, you know, and how you manage the two. And you know, you're not only a brilliant athlete, but a brilliant student in terms of learning these concepts behind what is behind efficient movement relative to sprinting, and you know, and how you manage the L1 interference, if I may call it that, which is your ballet interference in training. You seem to cope well with that. It took a while, but you are able to express that, you know, very effectively now. When we take, I'm going to give you a break, so you have a little bit of a water break. But when we come back, I'd like you to talk about what you referred to earlier there on as the mental side of all this work that you're doing. You know, how has that contributed to your development, you know, and what does this mental side training, what does it look like really in training? And how have you used it for your own development? When we come back, Isabel. Well, Isabel, the influence of mental training, during your development, and how you have used that in training, how you have used that in competition. And I think I heard you say, you've used it in other areas of your life, including exams at school, other aspects of life. You are able to transfer these skills into those other aspects of your life. Could you just share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So, for example, one thing that I'd physically worked on in training, like say in the first year, was my starts. And so, as in starting a race, and I think I'd got that in my head and I was able to start a race. And so I got a friend to film me once starting the race. And you can see at the start, I was doing well. I'd get a good start with my start, and then I'd carry on running. It would be towards the end, even though physically I had the energy in me, I just start slowing down. I'd see people were coming past me and they'd be gone, and before I knew it, the race was over, and I'd slip back a couple of positions. And that was kind of when I started, it was only my 100 meters, why was I towards the end, what was going on? And that was definitely a lot to do with mentality. It's like just the thing of, I think it was the mind overcoming the body, or the other, it's just both of them working together, because I definitely learned that even just within training sessions, I'll be doing however many reps and sets, and I'll be doing more and more reps, and my body's just feeling so tired, and I'm thinking I can't do it. And then it'd be the last push, and you say, imagine that it's the final, or imagine that you've been doing all the rest of the reps were heats, and now you're at the final. And somehow now I'm able to find that drive within me, and that's from all the lessons that I've been given. Even sometimes I don't realize I'm told little things that will come back into my head when I need to give that last push. And so the way in which I've been able to apply what I've learned in training to exams and things, I think it's just it'll be little anecdotes that you tell me, or it's just to do with mindset. It's just that it's your own performance, you're in control of yourself. You've got to be able to perform at the time. It's kind of hard to explain, but I just know that some of the lessons I've been taught, I can bring them into other aspects of my life. I think there was one thing, I was doing hill sessions really recently, and you were saying about the hill looking like Everest or something. Everest doesn't change, but you've changed. So the height of Mount Everest, the height of the hill to the exam, for example, it's there might be a problem, say in maths, and the first time you tackle it, you can't, it feels like you can't do it. And then you become equipped with the skills, you've worked on it, you do it for a couple of more weeks, and then you come back to it and you can attack it because the mountain hasn't changed, but you have got stronger, you've got more skills, you can apply them now in whether it's running or writing. Yeah. That's the best I could put it into words.
Yeah, indeed. Mount Everest is still the same Mount Everest. So if you don't get to the top today, go back, work on yourself, come back. Mount Everest will still be where Mount Everest is, but you will be a lot bigger.
Yes, yeah.
Well done for remembering that and bringing that in and applying that. And applying that to yourself. Yeah. Some of the things that young athletes, coming from the school environment into clubs, get a sense of shock with is usually their nutrition, their diet. They don't think a lot about what we eat, because it's just school athletics. But when we come into the club environment, we realize that we will need a lot of nutritional resource in our body for the amount of training that you are doing. And not only that, but you also need the correct nutritional resource to be able to do the training that you are doing on a specific day. You need a specific nutrition to deal with your after training effects, and suddenly, not suddenly, but gradually you start realizing maybe my current diet is not matching what the requirements that I need for my training and my competition. What was that journey like with you and for you, and how is it? We know it's still going on. Could you just share?
So I'm definitely still working on like my diet generally, because I've got allergies, like dairy and egg allergies anyway, so my diet is limited from that. But definitely starting training, it was a thing of, say if I knew that I had an endurance session the next day, say make sure you load on carbs. And so that was one thing that I was like aware of, and I started paying attention definitely to what I'm having the night before. If it's going to be useful stuff, like it's no use having like a takeaway or something before training. You need to have a substantial meal so you've got the resources in the morning for the session. And so that's the first part of it, what you have the night before. And then after training, you don't realize, I didn't realize when I first started, how many resources you're actually using up. Because even if it feels like whilst you're doing it that it's not that much, it's the come down afterwards, you're like, whoa, like I need to refuel. And you'll say make sure you have like protein afterwards or something. And that's one thing that I've still got to work on. Like I'll come home, and if I don't eat immediately, my mum's like, are you gonna, like, you need to refuel. So it's kind of, also it takes you back to like food tech in school, or like how you learn about what a balanced diet is, what's in your protein section, what's in your carbohydrate section. So it's even just a thing of, and as I get older, I have to take more responsibility. It's not just my parents that can just give me the food. Like I've got to think, well, I've come back from training, what can I have? Can I have some form of like a smoothie, which has like from vitamins and from the fruit? Like it's just, it's little things that you have to make little adjustments. Definitely, I think after training is when you need to refuel because of the amount you've used up. So that's something I'm still working on, but I've had to think about more as I've started proper training.
Mm-hmm. You make a brilliant point there about taking responsibility. It's no longer just about the parents, checking on me what I've eaten or whether I've eaten at all. But it's me knowing that, look, it's my responsibility. If I do not eat well, I will not be able to train well. I will not be able to compete well. I will not be able to recover well from training or from competition. So the responsibility really is on your part,
Yeah.
Which is a good point you raised there. Following on that same theme of personal responsibility, how has it helped you cope with all the transition from school athletics, where it's the PE teachers telling you, and you're relying on your peers maybe to motivate you? How has personal responsibility helped you to transition from school athletics to club athletics, and in your case, to one-to-one coaching and training?
Yeah, so I think in school, as you said, the teachers are telling us what to do. We're like, it's not really done. Well, sometimes we get given a bit of flexibility, but we're told, right, maybe do some time trials, maybe work on your start. Like it's very general. And if it's in a PE lesson, it's obviously structured. We're told you're going to be doing this today. Whereas what I do like when I come to training is, you tend to ask me at the start of the session as well, like how much do you have in your tank? Like, do you think, and how much do you think you can manage today? And so from the start, you get your own sort of input, and also being able to decide how many reps or sets. Like sometimes like, is it a trick question? No, I just need to it's actually, you're asking me as an athlete, what am I capable of today? And so that's an element of responsibility. Like I like that sort of with freedom as well. You kind of get to decide what you can do, and I get given more as I get older. Like now that I've been doing training for a bit, I understand, I know what the different drills are. So if it's down to me to pick one, like it's quite nice to know what I'm talking about and I can pick one. More responsibility, even just getting to training, that's the responsibility, making sure you're up on time. It's like sometimes I cycle to training because that's some sort of warm up. Like even though I'm reluctant to in the morning, once I do it, I realize it's actually a good way of warming up on the way to training. And then getting there by myself. So it's just, that's in that way I've become more like personally responsible through training with you. Yeah.
Now, well done, Isabel. When we come back, which is the last few minutes, I'd like you to share some of your insights, some of your experiences with other young school athletes who are also in the same boat, and they're trying to find their feet in a club environment. What are the 3 lessons probably that you have learned that you might want to share with them when we come back on from this last break, water break for you. Well, Isabel, you've been fantastic. You've been generous with your experiences, sharing your experiences and your insights in your training journey so far, as you have journeyed from school athletics into club athletics, and the amount of lessons that you have taken on board. It's huge. Now, if we're going to share with other young athletes there who are in a similar phase of their training, and or those that are in a school environment and are not so sure where they should go into a club environment for their continued progression, what would what 3 things would you share with them? What 3 experiences, insights, or tips would you share with them?
So I'd say firstly, like, you're not limited to what the school puts you forward for. Like, you don't, just because the schools thinks, like, they might have a gap in an event, for example. So say you like the 100 meters, but you're put in for like 300 or something, and that's just not for you. Don't feel like that you're stuck there. Like, there are so many, track and field and athletics, there are so many events, and there's always like one that's right for you. So I know that personally, like, I was put forward for the 100 meters at school most of the time, and then when I started training with my coach now, that I was told that I could either do 200 meters or 400 meters, and I think I laughed. I was thinking, how can I do 400 meters? But through learning all the technical side, the science behind it, and like my own body, the structure of my body, what I'm suited to, learning that there are other events. So 200 meters, I think, is now more my event than I thought 100 meters was. So yeah, as my first thing, just like know that there are so many options in athletics, and you will find the one that you enjoy the most. As another thing, transitioning, I think you'll benefit from having a coach outside, like a specialist coach who knows the ins and outs of running. Like, it's not just in school, it's not just running your race and you're done and you can just go off and do whatever. Like, if you want to commit and you want to get the results, knowing the science behind what you're doing really helps. So that's why it's good to be a part of a club and have that, like, that wisdom, that knowledge, like, passed on to you, and then you start to understand more about the running. Like, it's not just running, there's a lot more to it. And yeah, that's the second thing. And then lastly, this is advice for people who want to do training, maybe fulfilling your dreams. Like, it can become a reality. Like, you can have it as a dream, it might seem really far away. It's like, how could I ever do that? But you have to take the first step. You have to, at least, because otherwise you never know if that's going to be an option. If you're just sat there dreaming about, like, watching the Olympics and thinking, oh, that's cool, you've got to act on it. So actually being a part of a club, having that training, you're on that step, like on that ladder, you're one rung closer to, if that's where you want to go all the way, or if that's like, or if you want to see more successes in your school career. Like, it's just, there are so many benefits to doing training. Like, personally, afterwards, like, I feel great after each session, even if it's a tricky session, like, it's really worth it. And then it's just lovely to like see the results, see the change from when you first start to a few years in. Like the little improvements actually amount to quite a lot when it comes to like a race environment. So yeah, that's my advice, my tips. Yeah.
Brilliant tips there. Brilliant tips, Isabel. One, I hear you say, well, track and field is broad. Do not think because you didn't perform well in 400 meters in your school competition, therefore you're not a good athlete or you're not good at all to further find it. No, there are various athlete events there, from jumps to throws to middle and long distance to short to hurdles. So there is an event there that you are bound to be able to find your interest and your passion for, and which your body might have some sort of advantage that you'll be able to do that within a club environment where that help is available to you. So super duper that. And also that follow your dream. It's not just enough to think, "Ooh, that looks cool, I think I could do that." You want to act on it. I think that's a very very deep wisdom there on your part, Isabel. Be able to act on what you envision and what you're dreaming at, because only then can it only when we act on it can it become reality. So what's left for me, Isabel, is to say you've been brilliant, you've been wonderful, you've been very informative and inspiring, for other young athletes there, upcoming athletes and athletes that are probably at the crossroads of, should I continue? Is this worth doing it? Is this that? I think you've come across in a manner that has been and will be beneficial to your viewers, those that have watched this directly or who watch it, as a recorded program. So from me, I say bye-bye and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I loved it. Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
It was, yeah. Well done. Well, we'll see you in training.
Yeah.